close to retirement, many of them would already have set out a roadmap on how to spend their hard-earned savings. However, with the coronavirus currently causing turmoil in investment markets globally, many may find life tough while on retirement. We're now joined by Sanlam Chief Executive Officer Tega Shiimi. Good evening, Mr. Shiimi, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Surya, and thank you for having me on the show.
Firstly, how hard has the insurance industry been affected by the outbreak of COVID-19?
Well, I think, Surya, let's just maybe start at macro level. Obviously, we know that before, let's say, the 20th of January, before COVID-19 really hit the world, Namibia as a country, as an economy, has already been in almost 3 years of consecutive negative growth. The Namibian Statistics Agency came out and they quoted that 2019 numbers was a contraction of 1.1%. So basically saying that going into the COVID-19 pandemic, Namibia already was struggling as an economy. Many sectors, not just the insurance sector, was already under pressure. So it just goes to stand that, already that profits were going down, retrenchments were certainly going to follow. We see right now as we speak, and the Minister of Finance has already announced that currently the economy is running at about, is losing about 1.7 to 2 billion Namibian dollars a week. And that just means that the knock-on effect, specifically in the insurance sector, is huge, because people are facing retrenchment possibilities. Obviously, companies will have to lay people off. Household incomes have been shrinking or lost. And the ability for them to be able to pay and honor their insurance or retirement planning obligations is obviously compromised. So the long and the short is the insurance industry has been hit. We can't quantify it because we really are still at the beginning stages, at least in Namibia, but we certainly have seen the impact on the entire economy, and that has impacted the insurance industry as well.
Now, my follow-up question to that is, for a sector that specializes in risk management, would you say it was fully prepared for a crisis of this magnitude? And what lessons have you learned thus far?
Well, I think maybe as well, just to take one step back, it's important to understand, what risk management really is. Risk management really speaks about, number one, identifying an event, analyzing it, and then deciding whether you want to accept that risk or mitigate that risk. So that's really what insurance companies have been doing generally, and what we specifically focus on at Sanlam. So the important things is that across the spectrum, with all the different pandemics and all the other incidences, whether it was SARS or all the other different calamities that have faced this world, obviously we always want to protect our investments. So what we always do is what we call asset liability matching. So whenever we take on a risk, we make sure that there is an asset to be able to cover that liability. So the long and the short is, yes, we have been mitigated. Sanlam is well capitalized, sufficiently capitalized. So in the unlikely event where Sanlam policyholders should die at the event of COVID-19, there is a valid claim, and we have sufficient reserves to be able to pay that. Also, speaking as well to other either deaths or disabilities or diseases, that is just something that the insurance industry as a whole generally needs to mitigate themselves. In terms of the lessons that we have learned is probably understanding COVID-19 and the repercussions of COVID-19. Remember that COVID-19 is really a viral respiratory illness. So of many sorts. So it's a family of viral respiratory illnesses. So it's COVID-19 is new to us, but there have been similar other diseases, and that's why we have mitigated for that. But the long-term impact of it still needs to be seen. We've seen it struggling already in the economy, and the impact on that, and possibly impact on retrenchments, wage bills, income levels. But in the long run, the lessons we need to understand is we probably need to start looking at things of doing things differently, how we service our clients, how we listen to the needs of our clients, and how we actually address the needs of our clients these pandemic areas.
Now, looking at recent market movements, should anyone close to retirement be concerned about the investments they've made? What's your perspective?
The perspective is, yes, the markets have gone down. They have taken a beating, to say the least. But it also depends on where you were invested as a person. So many people generally, if you've had good advice, you would make sure that the product that you invested in, if you are, let's say, 3 to 5 years before retirement, has an element of what we call capital protection. So generally, coming close to retirement, your capital is protected. So should events such as COVID-19 take place where the markets fall, at least your capital is protected, and at least you can retire dignifiedly. But having said that as well, it really comes down to the point of where you are invested in and whether you have made sufficient provision over the years to be able to have what we call a dignified or meaningful retirement. Mm-hmm. What we've also seen in terms of the markets that you refer to, we've always seen that, and it's been tested over 100 years in the stock market, is that after a crash like this, in terms of the stock markets, there's always a bit of a bull run. There's always a recovery. There's always a cyclical recovery. So as much as people are very emotional and very jittery, right now they are within certain pockets buying opportunities and staying in the market and riding that curve out. I mean, just at the end of March, I beg your pardon, or in the middle of March, the JSE was down 30%. I mean, it was at its lowest end in March, has recovered now. I looked at the numbers again yesterday, has recovered 30% in such a short time. Yeah. So there are opportunities, but it all boils down to whether you've actually had sufficient retirement planning. There will be knocks, but I think this is probably the one lesson that we also need to imply to our people, and just to really be prudent and selfish around their own financial planning. Speak to your financial advisor and look at a plan in terms of what really one can do in terms of calamities such as this.
We shall end it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Tega Shiimi. And that was Tega Shiimi, talking to us, the Sanlam Chief Executive Officer here in Namibia, talking to us about the impact of the COVID-19 impact that it had on the insurance sector.